The reason you're boring or constantly bored is because you don't know enough fun facts about random things. Well, neither do I, so welcome back to 30-Minute Finds, a series where for 30 minutes a day, I choose a topic from this random list of things I found on Pinterest. I do as much research as physically possible and explain my findings to you guys. Today's topic is racial identity in the Caribbean. If you watched the last episode, you know it was on the dead branches of evolution, so I am a lot more excited for this topic than the last one. But we'll have to see how it goes. As always, the essentials are really simple: a pen, some paper, a device, and 30 minutes of genuine curiosity. Ta-da! Just over 30 minutes later, this is everything I came up with. As always, I wanted to define the key words of this topic. I don't want to be under any assumption that everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. The Caribbean is essentially a group of islands clustered around the Caribbean Sea in the continent of South America. These countries and nations have been shaped by colonization, resistance, natural disasters, and economic shift. In terms of the racial identity part of the topic, sharing some pretty big definitions. So race is phenotypical differences, so it's just the presentation between people. Ethnicity then ties into someone's ancestry, where are their parents from, their family from, and nationality is the nation in which they belong. For example, me, my race is Black, my ethnicity is Nigerian, Yoruba specifically, and my nationality is British. That might not be the same for other people who may look exactly like me. I think it's an important disclaimer because race is a social construct, like it's not a real thing and it's so hard to define. So for example, people that might look phenotypically Black in some Caribbean countries may not identify as Black because they've never needed to. Now that's out of the way, I'm talking about the different racial and ethnic groups that exist within the Caribbean. So the largest population, and I guess where people's mind typically goes to when thinking about the Caribbean, is Afro-Caribbeans. So these are descendants of Africans, the majority transported as slaves between the 15th and 19th century via the transatlantic slave trade, typically coming from sub-Saharan African countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Congo, etc. Because of various changes and groups and mixing over the years, a lot of people, a lot of Afro-Caribbeans still have a mix of European, Middle Eastern, South Asian, Chinese, and indigenous blood. Then one of the next largest groups in the Caribbean is Indo-Caribbeans, which are people who trace their ancestry to the Indian subcontinent. A lot of them came or are descendants from indentured labourers who came from British India. Shout out to the British, they forced countries to be a melting pot, whether they liked it or not. And nowadays they are largely situated in Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and Dutch-speaking Suriname. What I thought was interesting though was initially when the British were bringing people over from India, the majority of them were men. I think the Indian government made it significantly harder for them to bring women over, meaning some families had to be split up, and only 25% of the original labourers were women. However, by the 1800s, they loosened a lot of these laws and families